Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Info Entertainment Reviews, your IER Vibes channel. Shout out to YouTube.com and a big, very special thanks to all of my supporters who have subscribed and also those who started to subscribe from day one and those who just subscribed recently. Thank you so much. I will be subscribing back, and whether if you have a channel or not, I always do subscribe back. And if you are planning to start a YouTube channel, or maybe you want some tips or maybe good advice, well, let me know. I definitely would glad to help you out. Thanks again to all of you and those who just recently subscribed the last couple of days. Thank you kindly so much. This really does mean a lot to me, and it sure is a pleasure to have all of you. And many of you definitely have some great channels, as I do follow and I do go and watch and keep up to date of what you guys all post. Thank you again. Here we are. It is August 11th, currently 11:40 p.m. Arizona time. So you've all noticed you've been keeping up with the earthquakes that have been going on, and my apologies for the last couple of weeks, you guys. I know I have not posted anything. Just a lot going on, but I always do think about all of you. And here I am with your latest earthquake update. I have been definitely keeping myself on alert with these quakes. It's pretty crazy with what Mother Nature is just bringing to us this year. We're really close towards the end of the year. Before you know it, 2019. And what will 2019 be like? I definitely could say we might even be breaking some more record numbers of earthquakes for the beginning of January coming this 2019 ahead, and that's just a couple of months away. Unbelievable. Christmas is already almost here. Halloween, well, I'll be glad when Halloween passes. It's the holidays I highly enjoy, and boy, Christmas goes way too fast. So you guys, you already all know what happened in Indonesia. Now, here's the thing, because I did do a video and then I ended up losing this video due to the process because of my old device. And basically, I gave my prediction when I was going to upload. On that video, I had planned to update you guys previously, and that video got lost again, like I said. Now, prior to that, there was a lot of 5s and near 6 magnitudes building up around this whole area from Tonga and of course all the way across. Now those, if you are new here to the channel and watching the earthquake updates, as a heads up, when I do my earthquake updates, now I've been doing this for just a couple of years, and again, I've had people say, well, you know, I've got this many years now. Of course, you don't have to have experience of years. The years don't mean a thing. You can have 40 years experience in earthquakes. I don't care. It doesn't mean nothing to me. Everyone does it differently. And since I've been doing these earthquake updates, I have my own unique way of how I look and how I could basically give you a heads up of a percentage rate of, say, example, this 5.5 hit, but then because of that earthquake, there could be a 70 or 80% chance. Now, my accuracy has always been prompt. It's always been very well on point, and definitely have not been wrong. So when I did, prior to that video, mention about this possible 7, which I hoped it wasn't gonna be, well, it did, and it was up in Indonesia. They got blasted, and my gosh, the footage was just truly, it's real spine chilling, and it's not over yet. Also, just to let you all know, as everyone talks about the whole west coastline, the Cascadia, the San Andreas, you don't really hear too much about the New Madrid fault, but then also you never hear about the fault line here in the state of AZ, which is massive. This thing is a one stretch line which travels from as far up north past Flag all the way down the 89 going south towards Texas, cutting through parts of Texas, and then in between to Oklahoma, pointing towards the New Madrid. That's just one fault. So I gotta say, I believe, even though it is a dormant fault line, thank goodness, but being that it's pointed to the Madrid's pointed towards over here. Then you have the San Andreas, and then on top of California's just sit on nothing but faults. It's just insane. And we'll be getting into a topic on that one towards in the next following week. Now, over here, there is a ton of activity, and man, this is not even nothing compared to what's coming ahead for the next 7 days. And yes, I'm giving you guys a full 7 days, a heads up update of what's to come. Starting off over here, I'm gonna try to make this as quick as possible. That way I could do some other updates for you, and I got some other content to work on. Now, within near Tonga, which is not too far away from Switzerland, I mean New Zealand, Switzerland. Now, this right here, which was just south of Fiji Islands, and this was 109 kilometers, 0.12 deep, 5.1 magnitude earthquake, and then also following by a 4.4, which was a deep 500 plus kilometers in depth. Now, just to let you all know, again, if you're new to the channel, when it comes to talking about the West Coast and fault lines, etc., this is the most unstable area on this planet so far that I had known of as of yet, until other faults do occur or unless I find something else more active. But there hasn't been since I've been doing these updates. Now, this is like, imagine dropping a shattered plate. Your plate falls on the ground and you overload it with food. What happens? You can only hold so much, and it possibly could have slipped out, and bam, it shatters, and you piece it back together without glue. That's what this looks like in here, all throughout. So from Tonga and Fiji Islands, from right within this area all the way on through on both sides, from this ends all the way up and through here. Miracle that Australia is like never getting anything, and once in a blue moon they do, but they have never gotten anything major to the extreme. It's just these areas, and it trickles all the way towards through the Philippines, and then also up towards through Japan. And that's, I mean, if I was to show you the fault map, it's just unbelievable. And it is. This is the area that cannot handle a super massive mega quake. Just like the hurricanes. As an example, a couple years ago, I mentioned, because how people are saying, well, the maximum category is a 5, category 5 hurricane at the maximum. There is no category above that. Yes, there is. It just has never happened. Just like when we speak about earthquakes. When it comes to earthquakes, people talk about, well, it's impossible to have a 12 or a 13 magnitude earthquake. It's full of BS, because yes, it is possible and it could happen. Now, I mentioned how a category 6 could possibly happen somewhere around 2018 or possibly when we hit 2019. Guess what? Well, that hurricane that just happened, Hurricane Michael, which is pretty crazy weather. I'm not going to get into that one yet. But anyhow, that was a near category 6. It was getting pretty close. So now it's coming out saying, you know what? There's possibilities of a category 6 hurricane. Yeah, there sure has. I've been way ahead of the game this whole time. And when it comes to these earthquakes, if California was to get one on a worse scale, on the worst of the worst, California could easily be ripped and bombarded by a 10.5 or an 11.2 magnitude earthquake, which that would certainly dominate and affect all of the whole West Coast, and even through Oregon, and of course even through Washington. It would affect Arizona, and it probably would even trigger the fault here, and it probably would certainly definitely trigger the Madrid. So something to think about. Never think that the maximum category would be a 9 like we saw back when Mexico got hit. That was a pretty bad quake, and things are stirring up, but it's quiet down a little bit somewhat. But what we're seeing here, there's a lot of movement. Now let's move on. Right here, we have some big movement, and this is nothing like I was saying compared to the next few days ahead, especially for the next 7 days. 4.8, which is 133 kilometers east-southeast of Kimbo, Papua New Guinea. 44.5 kilometers in depth. But then, here it is. It gets hit with a 6.5 magnitude earthquake, which I'll definitely put on the scale at a 6.6, which is usually how it goes until we get the data, which the data we've received here pretty much it has been adjusted And so you always, when you see these numbers, you want to give or take a 0.1 or 0.2, depending how bad and how shallow this quake was. 139 kilometers in depth. And then also coming on down, I'm going to focus on the bigger quakes right now. Over here, take a look at this. Indonesia has not stopped ever since that massive 7.8 earthquake. 5.6 magnitude, striking 139 kilometers south of Lake Sula, Indonesia. And that was only 10 kilometers, which is super, super shallow. Following by a couple fours, it looks like this is going to be a 3.6. I'll put that at a 3.8. And also we have this one at a 4.4 at 10 kilometers in depth. So going into Indonesia, you guys take a look over here. Because of what happened with the movement in Indonesia, look how it has fully reshaped everything. I mean, this place got hit so bad. I just cannot believe of how bad it got hit. Now, which is kind of weird because this is in satellite view, this globe. The only two earthquake services that I do love highly much is this, and then of course the Walton earthquake edition as well. But look at this. I mean, the mass amount of damages just throughout, you guys, and you can see how the dirt just kind of like woof, goes up in there. Really devastating of what happened. And I believe over here, well, mostly of the coastlines. But anyhow, I don't want to spend too much on that. There's a lot of earthquakes to do here. We're already 11 minutes, 40 seconds in. Over here, we have some other quakes. What is this? A 4.0 striking the Philippines. Now, for the Philippines, I'm going to give you guys a heads up because right now we have too much movement going on. There's too much pressure, and there's going to be a lot going on, especially in the next 3 days, even for the next day and a half. For the Philippines, definitely if you're watching and you're from the Philippines or you know anybody out there, please give a heads up because keep an eye out for a possible 5.4 in the next 48 hours because of the amount of activity due to this 6+ magnitude. And plus over here, coming up towards through Russia before we get into Alaska, look at this one at a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, but then it gets even more gnarly. We have a 6.6 magnitude at 10.2 kilometers in depth right through Russia, and multiple 5 magnitude quakes, which this one we're seeing at a 5.1 magnitude, afterwards by a 5.2, and it's just one after another, and then also we have this one at a 5.4, following by a couple even more, which is the 5.1, and I believe I read this one off already, which is the 5.2 magnitude earthquake that had struck. And now those were pretty much basically triggered from that 6 magnitude quake that had hit. And that is not nothing yet. We possibly may see another 6 magnitude coming by tomorrow nor later than the next 2 days ahead. Now let's go back towards Fiji Islands real quick before we hit the rest of these earthquakes and give you your quick heads up of what to look out for the next day or even the next 48 hours through this area. Because of this earthquake and because of how unstable this area really is. Yes, this was a deep quake at 109 kilometers in depth. And yes, this was a 5.1, but this is enough to trigger the domino effect, not aftershocks. Domino effect is when these earthquakes tend to spread out because one area shook just right enough that the vibrations and just the shaking of it starts trickling on down. It's like when you're cracking wood in half. What does wood do when you split wood in one section of it? The rest of the wood can split down depending on the angle and depending on what kind of wood it is. Almost like when like a windshield on a car. When a rock hits that windshield just at the right amount of force, what happens when it cracks? It'll either have a small crack or it'll turn around and just leave the crack. It trickles on down. Now that's what happens in this area, and especially because of this quake right here that you are seeing, which is the one at a 6.5, which I even said at about a 6.6, and it could even possibly been on the Richter scale of a 6.7. This quake is the one that is going to be triggering a lot more for Indonesia. So I want to give everybody a heads up over there. Just to be aware for the next 3 days ahead, keep an eye because there is a possibility for another 6 magnitude quake, which It doesn't have to strike directly on Indonesia, but I am at an 89% chance that right within through this area, we will see a 6.0. Hopefully I am wrong. And again, that's why it's at an 89% chance of that occurring. Now for the Philippines, again, keep an eye out for the next 48 hours for a possible 5.0 magnitude quake to possibly occur, especially for the rest of the ahead of the week. As again, for the full 7 days, this week is going to be really interesting because of the amount of activity. Now, Alaska, definitely want to keep an eye out for Alaska. And why? Because here it is again. The patterns are kicking in just like they always do. Every time earthquakes start to trickle on down, it always starts from one end of that coastline all the way to the other opposite side on the other end of Alaska, and they end up fulfilling. So this big gap that you're seeing right here, eventually within the next 4 to 5 days, we will see that fulfilled all the way. Whether these are 1, 2, or 3 magnitude quakes. Though, because of the quake that happened right along this ring of fire, which it struck right along it. There's so much movement in the ocean floor, you guys, and nobody has any idea exactly what is happening under this waters. It's pretty insane. Now imagine if you did see everything. It'd be probably pretty not so fun to look at. So because of that quake and because how shallow that quake was, it's already trickling on down a mass domino effect. So Alaska, for tomorrow and the following, I'm going to say 72 hours, at a 90% chance, keep an eye out for multiple 5 magnitude quakes anywhere to be triggering from within where you see this group of earthquakes, which are more likely the 3.8s. And of course, you can see in the green within the 2 magnitudes. But from within through here and all along Alaska's main coastal area, we could see multiple 5s. And at a 90% chance, a maximum at a 6.4 magnitude quake to happen in the next 72 hours, possibly even sooner. So that is definitely a for sure thing we will be seeing, and guaranteed we'll be seeing tons of 3 points and 4 plus magnitude quakes. So you guys, definitely if you're living along the near coastal areas, you want to get definitely prepared. And California for ahead along the west coastline throughout California. Now Portland, Oregon, and etc. and going on along through up into Washington, I believe we're not going to see really nothing going on there. But because of the Cascadia fault and the San Andreas, and along with the other fault lines, we're going to be seeing a possible 4.2 to a 4.3 magnitude along the west coast. If not even outside of that west coast, I don't see anything possibly happening on land in the next 3 to 5 days ahead. But I do see 4.0, and I would definitely put that at an 89% chance at a 4.0 magnitude quake, possibly a maximum 4.5. God forbid that we do not see anything that strikes at a 5.6 magnitude quake. But you just never know, because lately when these quakes have been hitting, things have been quite a bit some off. And I know many of you have been keeping an eye out on these earthquakes. Though, let's go ahead and get into these quakes in California, even though these are nothing major, but we still want to read these out. Again, this is outside of the west coastline. This is Petrolia, California, at a 3.18 magnitude earthquake at 23 kilometers in depth. And that was only 107 kilometers west of Petrolia, California. So, because of that 3.18 magnitude, that's already signs of that 4.0 to come. And it could even happen sooner. And it's happened before where I've named off earthquakes to strike in 24 hours and they end up striking within hours. And I mean just a couple of hours after doing an update. Next thing you know, bam, suddenly they strike. So we'll be seeing California with a little bit of movement. Now going into Mexico, there's a lot happening also as well. Now here is a small quake, which is up in Imperial, California, which is 17 kilometers west of Imperial, at a 2.83 magnitude earthquake. And that is only 10.96 kilometers in depth. Also continuing on down, you have this quake striking up in the Gulf of California at a 3.7 and only 16.0 kilometers in depth. And this is pretty much, I'm going to list at a 3.8. This is near the 4.0 magnitude threshold that I was giving you your heads up for the coming next 48 hours. And again, this could even happen even sooner. But like I said, give California a good 4 days grace period for that 4.0 to strike, and at a maximum, you guys, possibly a 5.0 may hit, but hopefully it doesn't. Now with Mexico's situation, here it is. Things are starting to move from one end, and again, it's going to start traveling and making its other way to the Coatzacoalcos other side. Hopefully I pronounced that right. My apologies if I did say that wrong. Now continuing right here, take a look. We have the 3.8, 62 kilometers in depth, following by this one at a 4.0 in Oaxaca, Mexico. And then continuing on forward, we have this earthquake, which is again in the same area, 4.0. And then here we go. It looks like the 3.7 magnitude at 82 kilometers in depth. And you guys remember what happened. Just like I mentioned previously, these quakes are pretty gnarly. And this is a very unstable area as well. Because why? When that massive quake hit Mexico, that near 9 magnitude, it pulled the ocean floor apart so dramatically that no one has actually stated the exact numbers of how long of a stretch that the ground cracked open and how wide, and as well how deep. And I'm pretty sure that's well deep. After that had happened, many of you remember when the waters were disappearing along many coastlines. I mentioned this before. Well, you know, people don't know why water is disappearing. You guys, it's not too hard to figure things out. But anyhow, I'll leave that up to your own decision and how your own thoughts. Now, continuing up into Costa Rica, we have a 3.0 magnitude, 4.0 kilometers in depth. Now, for Mexico, before we do move on forward, give a heads up at a 90% chance within the next 48 hours, we will be seeing multiple 5 magnitude quakes, and this is going to be possibly even sooner. We might even see this coming into the early morning, as it is probably about 12 o'clock my time here in Arizona. So I'm going to say maybe by 10 a.m. in the morning, or throughout and possibly on up past that time frame, we will probably see even a 5 magnitude strike within those hours. So keep an eye out from there. Hopefully we do not see any 6 magnitude quakes, but as far as the rest of the week ahead, I do see for the week afterwards starting off with a 6+ magnitude striking anywhere throughout this area of the coastlines of Mexico. Now, southern United States, take a look up over here. Things are stirring up, and we are starting to bump it up right here with a 3.1, 94 kilometers in depth, following by the 3.7 at 40. And there's a lot of movement that is going on, and that is just definitely signs because, again, like I was mentioning, even though all those 6 magnitudes, I mean, that's over 12 magnitude of earthquakes put together in Russia, and of course, where that other one had hit. So that's in together 12+ magnitudes. That's enough to be sending that shockwave domino. And here's the problem. It has nowhere to stop. That's the thing. So it's going to be cutting corners. It's going to be going to one area, going to another area, and continuing. And it's just one thing, because of how weak this and unstable this area is over here. And it always happens. It has been happening. And I've always been on point with these earthquakes. Now, Fiji, again, there's going to be some bigger quakes. And yes, we will be seeing possible even another 7 magnitude towards the end of our 7-day grace period of time frame. So everybody, as of this update, definitely want to keep an eye out. And I will be keeping all of you posted, along with other content that I do have to catch up on and get listed here to the channel. Before we do end this, let's go ahead and finish up the rest of these quakes with a basically listed at a 5.0, because that's more likely what this was. It's at a 4.9, but again, that was a 5.0 magnitude. South Sandwich Islands regions at only 46 kilometers in depth. And will we see anything going on through here? I'm not too sure, but I definitely can guarantee there's going to be a lot going on within this area. Now, coming up towards the European side, we have also some activity building up. Now, within this spot, take a look, which is striking right up within through Chagistan with a 4.5, 10 kilometers in depth. And also we have another one, which is in southern Zhejiang, China at a 4.1, 33 kilometers in depth. Now, as far as bigger quakes, I believe we will be staying within the 4 magnitudes, and we could see a few more within the next couple of days, but I do not see anything greater than that. Though, coming up into Europe, take a look at Turkey. Turkey starting off with a small 2.57 kilometers in depth. Yes, very shallow indeed. Central Turkey with a 3.1 at 5.0 kilometers in depth. Following up over here in Greece at a 2.7. And these are all turning out to be very shallow earthquakes. Now also we have this one, you guys, at a 4.4 Eastern Mediterranean Sea, 10 kilometers in depth. I believe the rest of these are going to be very shallow quakes. And yes, this one here, not somewhat so shallow, but it is fairly well shallow at a 51.0 kilometers, striking southern Greece at a 3.1 magnitude earthquake. Now, also coming up through here before we get this finished up, give you guys a heads up because the way how these are building up, again, these two quakes that has struck. Let me zoom out a little bit more for you. You have this one, and you have that one in the pink. That is the highest color for the earthquakes through this source. You already see the amount of activity building up towards the European area and ending on this other end, which is throughout near the United Kingdom, France, 2.9 at 0.0 kilometers in depth. Wow, pretty interesting, I must say myself. So you guys keep an eye out for the next 72 hours for a possible 5.0, which could strike anywhere along from Turkey and again as far as out towards the United Kingdom area. So do keep an eye out for this spot as well because things are starting to definitely arise and things are starting to definitely trickle on down in a lot of movement. Otherwise, despite with the amount of activity, it's going to take and end this with the earthquake that struck in Hawaii, a small 2.5 at 10 kilometers in depth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your IER Vibes Info Entertainment Reviews. Thank you again to all of you and especially to those who just recently became supported here on the channel. Thank you all so much, and I hope you all do get my messages as I will be sending you a thank you message and appreciation. Share the love, thumbs up, and be safe. Love, live, smile, folks. This is your IER Vibes.